I want to just do a little bit of housekeeping, the little housekeeping with the mute button, if that's okay, Miriam.
Say that again?
That's about the mute.
That's right. So I will put everybody on mute, although I think everybody else has done that already. And if you haven't, you can do so now. And it does keep things on the up and up. So we have Jillian, our district governor nominee. We have Robbie Griffin, our foundation chair, and myself, Miriam McLeod, St. John's East, and I'm your district grants chair. So I'm going to do share screen now, and let's see what comes of that. Okay, here we go. We're going to go in presentation mode. And Jillian, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miriam, for being the hostess with the mostest as always. This evening, as Miriam says, we're really going to dive deep into the Rotary Foundation and understand how it can impact and do exactly as next year's theme leads us to, creating hope in the world. So this year's, of course, is Imagine. And but we're already thinking about district grants and global grants for next Rotary year. So we're a year ahead of ourselves. So this, if you haven't seen it yet, is the new theme for the 23-24 Rotary year, creating hope in the world, from the incoming RI president, Gordon McNally. And what he is looking to in stating this is that, yes, our mission as Rotarians is that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe and in our communities, as well as in ourselves. So the idea of creating lasting change draws us to projects that are sustainable and that have a real measurable impact. But this theme pulls a little extra step and says creating hope. So it's not just about creating change, it's about creating hope. And what we're looking at is finding ways that we can build peace in the world, as well as our own internal struggles and struggles with mental health and other stigmas. So these are some of the themes that are coming out for next Rotary year. So we are creating change, but we're also creating hope. And the Rotary Foundation is one of those ways that we can do that. So in the next slide, what you'll see is the fact that the Rotary Foundation takes our charitable gifts that come from us as members, as well as the broader community. They take these charitable gifts and turn those into service projects that change lives both close to home and around the world. Think of it, I guess, as a tool in your toolkit. As a club, you have access to resources through your fundraising activities, through maybe members who want to make donations to the club's projects. You may even have a charitable trust that's associated with your club. Think of the Rotary Foundation as being yet another resource available for you to help strengthen the impact of the projects that you're doing, either in your own neighborhood or around the world. It sounds like a lot. And sometimes I've been talking about the Rotary Foundation for years now here in Atlantic Canada. And what I often hear is that, oh, it's so complicated. But really, I'm gonna share that the Rotary Foundation does just three things. And if you could remember these three things, you got her scald, as we say in Newfoundland. So here are the three things that the Rotary Foundation does. This is it, just these three things. It's real simple. They are responsible for leading the charge for the eradication of polio in the Rotary world. So all of the efforts of the polio eradication is channeled through the Rotary Foundation. Secondly, a special focus and effort on promoting peace. And thirdly, the administration of grants that are conducted by us around the world. So tonight, we're just going to get a little snapshot on the first two, just so you have that rounded look of what the Rotary Foundation is all about. From there, we're going to dive deeper into the grants, touching a little bit on global grants and much more detailed on district grants. And we're also going to talk a little bit about where does all that money come from that's used to administer those grants. So it's going to be a lot of information shared tonight, and I look forward to being available. And I will monitor the chat, by the way, and I'll be Miriam's assistant as we go through this evening with any questions on the chat. So feel free to, there's not going to be a whole lot of breakout rooms and that sort of thing. So please feel free to use the chat button. If a question comes up, go ahead and put it in the chat and I'll curate a question and answer list for the end. Over to you, Miriam. Or is it Robbie? No, Robbie's up next.
Robbie.
Yeah.
It's me. Thank you.
And remember, Robbie, just to adjust your headset a little bit if that's okay.
So one of the major functions of the foundation for the past 30 years has been to eradicate polio around the world. The primary focus of Polio Plus, the program in which we are involved, is to eradicate polio for all time from around the world. Polio Plus has the resources to extend their work into other health concerns, which is the reason that it's plus. So as an example, over the last couple of years, much effort has been also putting into COVID-19 and trying to vaccinate as many people as possible in countries around the world. In 2019, there were only 3 countries that had cases of wild polio. In 2021, that had been cut down to just 2 countries. Africa was declared wild polio free in the year 2020. 26 countries are still under close watch. And Rotary has been working to eradicate polio, as I said, for more than 30 years. Our goal of ridding the world of this disease is closer than ever. And right now, a huge effort is being put in to have the last case of active polio by the end of 2024. We have helped immunize more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. So far, Rotary has contributed more than 1.8 billion with a B, dollars towards eradicating this disease worldwide. And today, polio remains endemic only in Afghanistan and Pakistan. By endemic, I'm meaning that there are cases in those countries. Now, we've had a couple of other cases pop up. We have jumped on them very quickly. One was in New York State, so that's hitting pretty close to home. But that was the lowest rate of any state in the United States in their vaccination rates. And so a huge vaccination effort has gone on in New York State since that case became active. And we've had a couple of cases in Mozambique. And again, a huge vaccination program has stopped that spread there as well. So we say that it is endemic in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but it's crucial to continue working to keep other countries polio free. So as we have learned, the vaccination program cannot end. And if all eradication efforts stopped today, within 10 years, polio could paralyze as many as 200,000 children each year. This year, we've had an isolated case, and we don't want this to happen anywhere else, because if we don't vaccinate, that case could have blown up and affected many more people. Miriam, it's over to you.
Thank you. The second important pillar to talk about is about Rotary creating environments of peace. As a humanitarian organization, peace is a cornerstone of our mission. We believe when people work to create peace in their communities, that change can have a global effect. By carrying out service projects and supporting peace fellowships and scholarships, our members take action to address the underlying causes of conflict, including poverty, discrimination, ethnic tension, lack of access to education, and unequal distribution of resources. Each year, the Rotary Foundation provides peace fellowships for students to earn either a master's degree or a peace certificate at leading post-secondary institutes around the world. It's our role to promote and help future Peace Fellows apply for this prestigious scholarship. This year, we had an applicant, this very Rotary year, but it's a really competitive program and it is challenging to get in. So
Here's
grant
your
administration,
first, oh, sorry.
go ahead, dear.
So your first quiz for the night. Rotary Foundation does 3 things. The first one is, who got it? Shout it out.
Ending polio.
Polio. Second one is
Promoting peace.
peace. You got it. And the third one is the grant administration. And that's where we're going to spend the rest of our evening. But wait, before we go there, it's kind of like, you know, the old expression of money doesn't grow on trees. What I'd like to say is, for just a few minutes, how is it that we get money into the foundation? So it's quite simply, people give gifts to the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation invests those gifts, and 3 years later, the returns on those investments are available to us to go out and make a difference with our communities. The Rotary, in my opinion, does a fantastic job at recognizing and thanking those who do this. And I'd like to invite Robbie to go through some of those options.
Sure, thank you. So as Jillian just said, all of the funds that we have for our district grants and global grants come from the foundation, from money that we donated in this district 3 years ago. The funds are allowed to grow over 3 years, and then 50% of what we gave 3 years ago goes to our district, and we use half of that for district grants, and we use half of it for global grants. So it's important that we give, and the more we give, the more money we have for our district grants and global grants. So there are yes, we can recognize people for their gifts. So every Rotarian every year encourages a Rotarian to make a gift of at least $25 US to the foundation each and every year. And there's actually an award given to a club if every Rotarian gives at least $25 US. The next designation is a Paul Harris Fellowship, and this recognizes individuals who contribute or who have contributions made in their name of at least $1,000 US. This is a cumulative over time recognition. So as an example, if we gave $100 a year for 10 years, at the end of that time, we would be recognized as a Paul Harris Fellow. We can give $1,000 US every year annually. And if we do that, then we are considered to be part of the Paul Harris Society. And we do have a Paul Harris Society here in District 7815. If people collectively or at a one-time donation give at least $10,000 US, then they are recognized as major donors to the foundation. And we have a person on here tonight, at least one, who is a major donor to the foundation. A benefactor of the Rotary Foundation is anyone who informs the foundation in writing that they have made a provision in their will or in their estate plan for a gift to be given to the foundation. And if you are interested in doing that, and many of our members in this district in fact have, please contact myself or Jillian or Miriam, and we will put you in touch with a person who will tell you exactly the wording that you need to use in your will to make yourself a benefactor to the foundation.
I think it's an interesting point, Robbie, about the Paul Harris Fellowship. Sometimes we bestow them upon other people for their good works and recognition, but it is really financial donations that accrue Paul Harris Fellow points.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, it was only, I think, in the 1950s that we were allowed to bestow a Paul Harris Fellow on a non-Rotarian. I think today people think that that's the only way to become or to get the Paul Harris recognition. But of course, it's not. Making the donations are what are important. Okay. When donors are asked why they support the annual fund, many will tell you that it's because we get something back when we give. When we contribute to the annual fund, as I said, part of that donation becomes available for our district and its clubs to use on foundation programs. When we donate to the annual fund for 3 years, as I said, the contribution is invested and then it comes back to us. Districts that use both district grants and global grants get the full impact of gifts made by their members. And the next slide, please. Okay, so this is just an example that the funds we have access to this year came from money that was given in the 2021 year. This will be for the 23-24 grants. So that's why it's so important for members to support the foundation consistently every year, because what we give this year, we can actually get back in 3 years' time. There is a small fee that is used by the foundation for administration of the foundation. And so that is 5%. So as an example, if we gave 105,000 from clubs and members 3 years ago, 5,000 would be taken for the operating of the foundation, and we would be left with $100,000 that was donated in 2021 that we can actually use in the upcoming year. 50,000 comes back to the district. That would be 50% of that 100,000, and 50% remains with the foundation to support the global grants. So of the 50,000 that we get in our district, half of that goes to district grants and half of it would go for global grants and polio. 50%, as I say, to the Rotary Foundation. They match funds from the district that are put into global grants. And we also have Peace Fellows, we have scholarships that come out of that, and vocational training. So those activities would use up the 50,000 that the would be given to the foundation. So we get it back, but it's just that it comes back through the foundation as opposed to the district grants, which come directly from the district when the foundation gives us the funds. Next. So, did we miss a slide? Okay. So if your club is interested in starting a global grant, please contact a member of our district leadership team. A fair bit goes into putting in a global grant, and it would be beneficial to you to get some information before you even begin. The minimum of a global grant is 30,000 US. Part of that, as an example, would come from the district. Part of it would be coming from the foundation, and part of it would come from clubs. At least 2 clubs from 2 different companies are required in order to have a global grant. And the grants must meet one of the 7 areas of focus. So we have 7 areas of focus, as I mentioned. So we have peace building and conflict presentation, basic education and literacy, disease prevention and treatment, water sanitation and hygiene, community economic development, maternal and child health, and supporting the environment is our newest area of focus, and that began in July 1st of 2022. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, under global grants, we have scholarships. This is considered one of the most prestigious scholarships in the world. And you can get a Rotary scholarship to go to any university in the world. You can get a peace scholarship, and there are 6 peace centers around the world that will train people in becoming a peace scholar. We have vocational training teams. So this would be a grant to allow people, say, from our district to go to a district somewhere else in the world to do some vocational training, or they could come here, or both. We could go there and then they could come here for some extra training. So often the vocational training team grant would be in conjunction with a humanitarian grant. Most of us think of the humanitarian grants, you know, digging a well or helping with the hospital supplies or supporting literacy programs for children as really what the foundation does, but it's only a part of it. It is the most significant part, but under the foundation global grants, we can also do these other things of scholarships and vocational training. Last year, we actually had a global grant scholar studying at Memorial University in Newfoundland. So we are locally involved with the scholarship program.
All right, Robbie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll take a short trip to Ghana to see about the most recent global grant.
Okay, so my screen is up. If you can give me the sharing.
You should be able to share screen now.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so as we said earlier this evening, this training is not just for district grants. I realize that most of us are probably on here because we want to apply for a district grant, but this training is also required if we want to become involved in a global grant. So this is just an example of a global grant that was done in our district. It's been happening over the past 4 years. It was a project between the Rotary Clubs of Ho in Ghana and Graham and Ann Island. How does a global grant even begin? Well, this one was a bit strange in that it was not intended initially to be a global grant, but I was named by Bishop David Edwards to be the companion diocese chair in the Anglican Diocese of Fredericton. So in 2019, I traveled to Ho, Ghana to do a needs assessment for what we could do for the Diocese of Ho. And being a Rotarian, I decided to utilize the Rotary Foundation needs assessment tools. I had used them for a project that our Rotary Club had done back in 2010 in the country of Guinea, and knew that it was a very effective tool. And so I used it thinking that this was just going to be an Anglican diocese project. The city of Ho has 180,000 people, but it is the capital of the Volta region, and it has 2.5 million. So most of the residents of the Volta region are living in small rural villages. The city of Ho itself has really changed little in many years. They only recently have had electricity, and only recently do they have running water in the city. This is a scene that I took from the market when I was there this January. And so if you want to buy anything in Ho, this is where you're going to go to buy it. So as you can see, it probably hasn't changed much in the last few hundred years. Food is a very simple diet of grains and sometimes smoked fish. So corn and beans are certainly a huge part of their diet. As I said, I visited 14, or I tell you, I did 14 communities when I did my needs assessment. And being a teacher, I went to the schools in each village just to see what they were like. And they feed the children for lunch. And I asked in every single school, what did you have for lunch today? The answer was always beans. So I found that fascinating that it was such a staple of their diet. And in the picture of the smoked seafood, you have eels, and then you have tilapia, and that's 95% of the protein that they would be eating in Ghana. Life is strenuous there. It's manual labor. The little girl on the left-hand side of your screen is Millie. She's 12 years old. One of her chores at home is to do the laundry, and she has to do the laundry for the 14 people who live there. And it's all done by hand, and she washes and she rinses and she squeezes and puts it out on the bushes to dry. And think of your grandchildren or children when they were 12. Would they have done that? Well, there's no question in Ghana, that's Millie's chores, and she will do it. The buildings in the city are concrete. In the rural areas, they're stucco huts with thatched roofs. But in the city, there's concrete block, and huge buildings are built, and the concrete is all mixed by hand. I did not see what we call a cement mixer or a cement truck anywhere. Is these people mixing up the concrete by hand, pouring some sand and some water and some cement in, and mixing up the concrete and putting the concrete blocks together. So as I said, I needed to do a needs assessment to find out what we would need or should be helping them with. So I visited 14 different communities in the Volta and Oti regions. The gentleman in the orange checked shirt was my interpreter. And in every single village, the needs came back something to do with medical. They had no medical services whatsoever in the rural areas. Different villages had different priorities in the medical system. So as an example, one village had congenital cataracts. And so by the time of 35, 40, almost everybody was going blind with cataracts. Another village had river blindness. These are parasites that get into the children's eyes when they're swimming in the river, and they contact river blindness and go blind within a matter of a few weeks. And so that was devastating in that community. That can be helped medically, but only if you have someone to administer the antibiotics and the drops and whatnot. Otherwise, people just simply go blind with river blindness. There were many childhood diseases. Measles, of course, is deadly. We don't think of that anymore as measles being deadly, but if you have no immunization, you haven't been vaccinated, then many children die of measles. So these were concerns that they were bringing up. This group of women was fascinating. When I went to the villages and did my need assessment, it was always the men who spoke. The women might be listening, but they either weren't allowed or didn't feel comfortable to speak, but they did want their voices heard. And so 2 days before I left Ghana on my first trip, these women showed up in Ho. They had, well, many of them had heard me speak and had heard their husbands, but they wanted me to understand that women had very different medical issues than men or even children. And so they walked, some of them for up to 2 days, to come to Ho to meet with me. And they were all part of an organization called Mothers Union. And so each one of those women represent a different village. And we talked for 4 hours. They wanted to talk about what it was like to give birth when you have no medical assistance, no medical prenatal care, no postnatal care. I found out that, as an example, that because many of the women are very young when they have their first child, 1 in 5 women and child were dying in childbirth. 1 in 5. And then after, shortly in the year, often after the child is born, another mother and child would die. And so, they had devastating statistics for why they needed special care. So when I came back, I met with the Rotary Club of Hull while I was there, and they were very interested in doing a medical global grant. One of the former presidents was a member of the administration of the Ho Teaching Hospital. This is a hospital. They have 306 beds, 23 doctors, and a very interesting campus. It was like a series of bungalows over a large area of ground, and each bungalow would be a different department. So you had the cancer ward, you had the eye clinics, you had surgeries, and I would see them wheeling a patient into surgery down the sidewalk. It'd be raining. They would have an umbrella above the patient as they were walking along, taking the patient to the surgery, because that would be in a completely different bungalow. So it was kind of interesting to see how they had actually put the whole thing together. And they were very interested in, because it was their mandate to serve the rural Volta and OT regions. Their question was, we would like to have a way to get our doctors to them, but we don't presently have that. And so out of that, the idea of a mobile clinic came about. And so the hospital agreed that they could fund the doctors who would go out on the mobile clinic. They have a national healthcare system that would pay for all the patients that we're seeing. That would sustain the clinic, pay for the gas, pay for the upkeep of the vehicle, and provide the medications and medical supplies that they would need. It would work like a MASH hospital. So the clinic would sort of be the brains of the outfit. On the roof would be racks for tents. So the mobile clinic would drive in. They would set up the tents. One would be to receive patients and to register them for the National Health Program and do minor examinations. And then if more needed to be done, they would be sent over to a second tent where more examinations could be made, or even procedures could be done in that second tent. So the hospital really came up with an excellent program. They just couldn't fund it. So I came back. It took 6 months to complete the Rotary Foundation application. It's not difficult, but it is very time consuming. You have to get so much information and detail from people. You have to get signatures from people in this case in Ghana, and signatures from our team here. And just doing that, sending the applications out and getting them signed and getting them back, having it reviewed, because that was very important if you're doing a global grant. I had my grant reviewed by 5 different people, all who had done global grants in the past, and one by a member of Rotary Cadre, who was a doctor at the IWK. And all 5 people gave me excellent information. The Cadre member was phenomenal. He really, I thought, elevated the level of my application by giving me the medical terms and making me more knowledgeable on exactly what the foundation expected in a grant. I submitted the application June the 30th, 2020, and that was a very important date because that was the last day under the old guidelines of the foundation. So at that time, they matched everything that the district put into the grant dollar for dollar, and everything that the club put in 50 cents on the dollar. That has since changed, and the club match is no longer there. and the district match is 80 cents to the dollar. Uh, uh, this was, of course, at the height of the pandemic, really ramping up. I received a letter in August stating that they had my application, but that it was a while before they actually could review it because they were inundated with COVID applications and they took priority at that time. So my application was finally reviewed in November. At that time, they requested more information and more documentation and gave me a deadline of February 2021 to get that information into them. We did get that information in. Our budget for this project was $278,000. The vehicle was $128,000. The equipment was $137,000 that went into this. I simply went to our local hospital and went into the lab and said, okay, what do you have? And they walked me through everything. And I ordered every piece of equipment that they had here in our hospital for this clinic. We had a $5,000 budget for training so that people could be trained on how to use some of the medical equipment. The foundation took a $5,000 fee for the application, and we had $3,000 in for research and reporting. So the expense budget, of course, has to be matched by the income side. We did local fundraising for $93,000. 18 of that came from our own Rotary Club. 4 other Rotary clubs in our district contributed to this project. We had Rotarians from our club who were extremely generous. And we had people in our community who literally would walk up and hand me a check because they had heard about the project. And we had some churches in the diocese that contributed as well to that 93,000. The Rotary Foundation kicked in 185,000. So a very large project, but it was doable. I guess that's the message that I always like to put across here. The project was approved in March of 21, and the clinic was built by Malley Industries in Dieppe, New Brunswick. And we couldn't, if it could have been built in Ghana, we would have done that, but there was no place in Ghana that could put this project together. Construction began in December of 2021. It took us that long just to get the chassis of the clinic because of the COVID backup for those bloody little chips that everybody was so desperate for. And so it took that many months to get a vehicle in. I went up several times while it was under construction. Malley did a heavy duty steel interior framework for us because I explained how rough the roads were in Ghana, and they didn't want the insides of the clinic literally falling apart. They were excellent in coming up with ideas. I explained what the purpose of the vehicle was, and they were very good. The counter that you see on the right-hand side is our lab for the lab equipment that the clinic would be carrying. All of the shelving has straps to hold the supplies and equipment in. We had some very special features that we added to it. There was a vaccine refrigerator you see on the left-hand side. There you see the lab shelving, 220 plugs because that's what they have in Ghana. Snow tires on, not because they have snow in Ghana, but because they have mud. And we also put a heavy duty bumper on the front of the vehicle with a winch so that they could tow themselves out of some of the mud sloughs that they would get in. And in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a stainless steel lockable pharmacy for the drugs that they would be carrying in the clinic. The clinic left Moncton and was taken down to the port of Halifax. I did not know, but I know now there was a roll-on, roll-off ferry that sails from Halifax to Brussels every week. And that's how we shipped the vehicle over. It was too large to fit into a container, which was our first idea. But this worked actually very well with the drive-on, drive-off ferry. And the clinic left Brussels on April the 12th. It arrived in the port of Tema, Ghana, May 5th. And then it sat in customs for 4 months. We couldn't get it out. So there are always things that you hadn't thought of. And so there's a saying in TIA, that is Africa, just the way things run sometimes. There's another expression that called trying, and they will try to get as much out of you if you're a North American or European as they can, because they feel that we have taken too much from them. So by leaving it in the customs for 4 months, there was a charge of demurrage, which is storage. Not that we asked them to store it for 4 months, but they came up with a charge for that. And they gave us a charge for duty. And we had been assured by the Department of Health that there would be no duty because the government of Ghana would own this in the end with the Ho Teaching Hospital. So after negotiating for weeks, we said, look, we do not have any more money. We cannot pay the duty. We cannot pay the demurrage because we were told those would not be charges that we would have. And the next day, the vehicle was released. But they tried. In January of 2023, District Governor Harvey Bass and I went to Ho Ghana for the inauguration of the clinic. It was commissioned in January the 8th of 2023. The gentleman that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is the First Minister of the Volta region. It would be equivalent to the Premier in our provinces. And he cut the ribbon on the left-hand side for the vehicle. This is just a shot of setting up the clinic. It rolls into a community. The tents would be set up and then they would be ready to go. As an added bonus to this project, Dr. Harvey Bass, our district governor, and some fellow doctors that he worked with closely, contributed 2 complete optical exam suites to the Ho Teaching Hospital. So literally they were in the stage of, you have the eye chart on the wall and you hold up a paddle to your eye. I'm sure some of you remember that's what an eye exam was 50 years ago. He took all the equipment that you would see in your own optometrist office today, took 2 suites over with him. And the equipment that he is sitting in front of on the right-hand side, that is an $85,000 piece of equipment. It takes digital images of your eye, literally takes 100 digital slices of each eye, puts it together so you can see the eye 3D. You can see any growths, if there are any irregular shape. It's just an amazing tool. And the optometrists there were like children at Christmas when they got this equipment, and then Harvey trained them to use it. So that was our project, but it doesn't end here. The Rotary Foundation will follow this project for the next few years to evaluate its impact on the health of rural people in Odie and Volta regions. Final reports will be submitted by the Ho Teaching Hospital to the foundation. This will be done over the next 2 years, and it will assist global projects in rural healthcare in the future. So a great deal of information will be, in fact, gleaned from this project. And it is possible that if it is successful, this could become a much larger project. And so there is one project a year that the foundation gives of $2 million, often matched. So that could put 15 of these vehicles into the rural country of Ghana. But that's a few years off. We need to get the data and supporting documents and information to do that. So that's my project. It was exciting. I've been to Ghana 3 times. Prior to that, I was to Guinea 3 times, and our club built a 12-room hospital there. That wasn't a foundation project, but it's sort of where I got my feet wet in global projects. Thank you. Stop screen sharing.
That's okay. I think I can take it.
Okay.
Which I did. Perfect. Robbie, thank you for that inspiring tale. And really, there's so much of that transferable knowledge that we can take to district grants in terms of sustainability and receipts and record keeping and consultation and needs assessment. So many relevant things to think about. So in terms of district grants, we're going to focus the rest of the time on the district grants, and I'm going to show you Club Runner, which for especially our New Brunswick, our new brothers and sisters in New Brunswick, this will be a pretty exciting thing to take a look at because it does take a few tries to get the hang of it. But we want to remind you the expanse of district grants. It doesn't have to be spent in your community. It can be used for local or international projects. So for example, I'll show you an international project that's being funded this year in a slide or two. The vast majority of them are spent in our region, but you don't have to think just in our region. And Rotaract and Rotary clubs must contribute at least the same amount as the district grant. And we're looking at a $3,000 match this year. So it is a good news story that Rotaract does not need to partner with a Rotary club. Rotaract can simply submit a grant, again, for up to $3,000 and can be matched with the district grant. So you might think, well, what really are the steps involved here? And this is a little, I'll say, pictogram to help you get the ideas. And that is where you start. It's with the idea. Somebody needs help. There's a service project that's being hatched. And so you can take that idea and you can apply for a district grant. So there is a first step where you give a very small summary. I'll show that to you. And that gets evaluated, and then it becomes a slightly larger application process. You execute the grant, and of course, the reporting has to be scrupulous. We need all of the receipts. We need all of the money spent within a certain period of time, and we need to be able to show that that happened. So the reporting is absolutely critical to make sure that we keep our designation with Rotary International. And that's the big part of it all. I think all of these work together. It comes with a great idea and it finishes with a little bit of reporting. So I wanted to just share some of the ideas, guess what I just read first, that we have this year in the hopper for district grants. And I love this one. It's such a great way to bring up the profile of Rotary, is that they sponsored a community speaker series of relevant topics like mental health or inclusion or immigration, welcoming immigrants. There were different topics that, again, they did a needs assessment and they found a great speaker to share. Coats for kids, for needy children, especially that cold snap we had recently. Got to make sure that the children have the right clothing. There was a lovely project of backpacks filled with nourishing food for the weekend for families with insecure food. And there were a number of adopted schools. One provided iPads, breakfast, and school supplies. Another provided Christmas hampers and food security after Christmas when the light bill goes up and then the food money just doesn't stretch as far. There was a literacy support club in the local community. A number of scholarships and bursaries were supported by district grants. And there were a couple of Rotary parks that had improvements thanks to district grants. I love the theme that we launched last year about the environment, and you can see that there's a few other ones that trickle through here in terms of planting trees and the butterfly garden, the food forest park, and the Gaia project kits. And I'll stop and go back to the Wallant project in Kenya, which was hand surgery kits and training in Kenya. So that was a wonderful international project that we were very excited to support. So now I'm going to change over and I'm going to show you a different, let me see here. And of course I need to hit the escape button. There we go. And I'm going to look at a different presentation here, and it's the screenshot. And I should add, Jillian, I haven't been doing a good job. I've been talking nonstop. Were there any questions that came that we should be addressing?
No questions as
Nope.
yet, just some
And-
lovely positive comments, but no questions.
Excellent. So we'll continue on, and hopefully if you still do have some questions, we'll be loving to hear them. So I took a screenshot straight from our fabulous District 7815 site, and the grant section was probably one of the first ones that was built. You go to the main site, member resources, the Rotary Foundation Global and District Grants, and you get to the District Grant homepage. And before I continue, you may wonder, do I have to take notes here? And I will say that we will share these documents with our District Secretary, Nikki White, and they'll get uploaded, and we'll make sure that everybody has the opportunity to look for those. So we did pay for the District Grants module, and boy, that was money well spent. There's no paper files, there's none of this futzing around. And if my role, if I change, for example, as District Grant Chair, I don't have to send a big Purolator box of papers to somebody. It's all housed here for years in our District Grant module. So if you have one in the current Rotary here, it would appear here. And this is actually my club. So I just took a quick screenshot of that, and you would just click on the grant section, view club grants, to see the grant that's on the go. So step one, I'll say, is submitting a grant proposal. And again, it's not a huge amount of money, so we're not looking for pages and pages of explanations and needs assessment. We're looking for what is your idea and a nice thumbnail sketch of how you'll do it. So you would click on submit a grant request, and it'll give you a space to type in the name of the project. You'd use the upcoming year.
Yeah, I'm meeting now.
Oh,
Can I call you later?
let's see, there we go. You'd use the current year. Your country would be Canada, your province, your postal code, your city, and then here's the nuts and bolts, the description. And you want to make sure that it's a nice enough description that we understand pretty much what needs to happen with the grant. The grant module is actually open now. So it's open from February to mid-May every year. So you don't have to feel like it's a mad rush. You do have a little bit of time to think and plot about your district grant. And once you put that district grant in your initial submission, we'll take a look at it. Now, the estimated budget is the last part of the initial submission. And I want to take a moment to give you a tip. If you're putting in a $20,000 project and you're contributing $17,000 and the district grant will be $3,000, you would have to submit receipts totaling the amount of the project of $20,000. So we recommend that if you can snap off a portion of a large project, if that's the case, for example, the lighting in a park or the walkway in a park or the benches in a park, that is a great idea to skinny up your grant and make your reporting much less onerous. And remember, if it's too big of a project, you also run the risk of not only having to upload 10,000 documents, but not having it completed on time, because it must be complete by May the 31st. So May the 31st. February is a big time in that the portal's open, and May is a big time in that district grants are coming to an end. So you want to pick the right size project. So here's a sample grant and an estimated budget, and the time frame is late February to May 15th. So as I said before, you've got some time. These are some other consideration points. You may have some local clubs partnering with you. Somebody is the main sponsoring club, but this is a great way for smaller clubs that may not have $3,000 that they want to put into the project, but they'll be happy to contribute $1,000 or $2,000. And in fact, you could even put in separate grants. You can collaborate together and take $1,000 here and there, or you can put in separate grants and use your allotment that way. So that's a bit of a new idea for us to be collaborative. But if you just want to put in, say, 500 or 1,000 with your club, you would be added here as a club who's making a donation. If you're partnering with another organization, perhaps a not-for-profit or some sort of another foundation that may help with the funding, you could add the partner information here. We would want to know who's helping in participating in the project. And we're going to send out some automated emails. We got that cleaned up. We think the automated emails will now not go to random Rotarians like they did in November of this year, but you'll get an automated email saying that the grant is received and that it's under review. And that comes from the module from the club runner. Then when we go down past that initial submission, now we're getting into the district grant full application. And I'm just going to run across each of those tabs and show you what is underneath each of those. The activity log is not a step or anything that is particularly interesting, but I'll certainly show you what that's all about. So step one are the details. So we want to have much more description on the project, or at least a little bit more description of the project. So what is the problem and how are you supporting the community? How many Rotarians will participate in that project? So you can see with that very first section, we want to think about projects that are people of action, because that's who Rotarians are, and are helping the community in a very meaningful way. And that'll pop up with this Word, it looks like Word to me anyway. You click the edit, and then you can type in whatever you want to talk about with the general description. There's a community assessment and impact section to fill out, the sustainability of your grant, cooperating organizations, and your implementation plan. And again, edit and fill it out like the Word document. So the general description, this is what the actual question is. Describe the project and the problem and how it supports the Rotary mission. Outline the need it will address, including the intended beneficiaries and how the project will benefit the community. Indicate the number of Rotarians who will be involved in the implementation of the project. There's a community assessment and needs impact, so how it will benefit the community. And I won't read every slide to you. You'll be able to look at this at your leisure, but it is nice to know what the questions are that we'll be asking you to answer in the application. The sustainability, if you come back for a district grant every year to support the same project, there could be a question over time that there is a sustainability concern associated with that project. So how can we get a project that can fly on its own, for example, that it's shown there's such a need in the community, it can fly on its own. So that's an interesting one to consider. Sometimes they can't always fly on their own. Again, your cooperating organizations that are not Rotary clubs who are going to work with you, and then the implementation plan. So this is where you're really going to want to put the meat and potatoes of your grant. What's the activities? What are you doing? How are you going to make a difference? And writing a check is not active involvement. So it has to be something that really is people of action, and we're really helping people move ahead in some significant way. The budget section is next, and it's quite a funky little module that you basically click. Again, like I've showed there with that budget item, you can talk about what your expenses are for equipment, for expertise, for speaker stipends, for shipping equipment. All those types of things are examples, or your expected incomes. Other Rotary clubs, district grants, fundraising from a special turning wine into water, if it's a water fundraiser, something like that. Where are those sources of income coming from? And you can add each one of those with the add project financing button in the module. Documents are critical. It's getting to that time of year where we're asking for a midterm report, and we're quite slow with our grants payment this year. Oof, that was a little bit of frustration that luckily didn't do permanent damage to me, I don't think, and I hope not to the other projects as well. But this is the time of year we are looking for a mid-year report, and really what we want to know is everything on par for this project to go? What you applied for back in February, is it going to come to fruition? That type of thing. Because remember, we're always a Rotary year behind. So we're actually at this interesting overlap stage now. I'm telling you about grants for next year, and the current grants are at play for the report this year. You can upload your documents in a folder if you want to note that, for example, receipts, if you want to note, I don't know, payments, if you want to note equipment, if you want to note it by professional services, and there's several to put in each one. You can put them in one at a time, or if you've got your files ready on your desktop, you can add multiple files at a time. Then you really know you're ready to put your documents in if you can click Add Multiple. Just a great aspect of the Club Runner module to have all that documentation all there tidy for us. So the project overview is really just a PDF. You can see, sorry, I went a little bit quick there, but you can see with the project overview, all the details, the application, the budget, the documents, it all amalgamates into one page. It turns into a PDF, and you can print it for your records, distribute it at a Rotary meeting, and get the kudos for taking the time and attention to put in your district grant. So the individual project report, this starts rolling around, I guess I'll say May. I'm really hot and heavy on folks looking to get their project report done. So it's uploading your documents, absolutely, making sure the budget items are matching as closely as possible. But now, what did you do? So these are the 6 questions that we're asking about. You said what you wanted to do. Now what actually happened? Describe the project. What did you do? How many people benefited? Was it 100 more than you anticipated? Who were the beneficiaries and how were they impacted? What humanitarian needs was met? How many Rotarians participated? And it shouldn't be that the treasurer wrote a check. It should have been that everybody had their Harvey Bass Rotarians at Work t-shirts on, and they were doing something together in the community. And you want to talk about what was done, and it's not just financial support in the project. It could be a scholarship, but I hope there's a bit of mentoring there. I hope there's a bit of coaching there from matching that person with a Rotarian who might be able to give them some coaching advice, for example.
Miriam, just as you take a breath there, I'm
sure.
gonna point out a comment that Rick is making. You're doing a really great job at clarifying, and you noted, oh, you're taking advantage of that time to take a sip of water. I caught you.
Yeah.
That you're doing an excellent job in explaining that there is that overlapping of the reporting for this year and for next. It's a bit confusing. So we're being asked just to be very clear on, is it 23-24 Rotary year or 24-25 Rotary year? So it is what we're talking, the new ones that we're talking about now are for the 23, 24
24.
Rotary year, not
Did-
24, 25. We're not that
Did I
far
say
ahead.
that?
You did not, but
Oh,
that's what the
okay.
question in the
Okay.
person just wanted clarity on that.
Yes. Oh, super, super point. Because we're not that far ahead. I'm happy to report. But yes, this current Rotary year was that list of projects that I showed about the speaker series and Coats for Kids and the Wallant project in Kenya. This is for a new batch of grants for 23, 24 that we haven't seen yet. You're the ones going to be putting them in. Super question. Thanks for asking for that. And then the sixth question is about the cooperating organization. What was their role? This activity log basically just shows you if somebody touched the grant or made a change or approved it, either somebody on the club side or somebody on the district grant committee side. That's all it is. You can't do anything. It's an automatic part. I'd say a stewardship part of the Club Runner module. So that's that about the Club Runner module. And like I say, I will certainly share that it'll get uploaded to the district site, which is what we started talking about, and you'll be able to look at that at your leisure. I was happy to do a phone call with somebody doing a district grant on the list you saw earlier, and we clicked through it, and I'll tell you what the little sexy stumbling block was, is you would want it to say 22, 23, but it's already moved ahead to this Rotary year. So it does get a bit confusing. You'll want to pick the current Rotary year of 23, 20, you'll want to pick, sorry, the upcoming Rotary year 23, 24, but then when you go to report, it's going to be ahead again. So you will want to be quite comfortable with navigating the correct Rotary year, and your Rotary year will be 23, 24, but that wasn't available when I was taking the screenshots. Awesome. So I know it was a bit of a wall of sound there, but we're almost done, aren't we?
Should we do? I do have two questions. Would you like them now or at the end?
Let's look at those gorgeous questions, because we really are almost at the end of the presentation. Let's go for it.
Take another sip of your water there.
I know.
So
It looks like water.
Here's a question about when the funds from the club that the club is putting towards the project, when do those funds need to actually be available? So at the time of the application or at the time of the project execution?
Great question. You don't have to have all the amount of funds to pay for that. That might be a question from New Brunswick, because that's a bit of a difference. In New Brunswick, the clubs had to have the full amount and were reimbursed. And we decided we'd try something new that might encourage smaller, clubs that just don't have a bucket of cash available for a district grant or a larger project. So we will encourage you to have some of the funding to get it started, but you don't have to match until execution. So we usually give you the district grants a bit quicker than we did this year. But yes, you can provide that in the life cycle of the project. You don't have to have it up front for reimbursement.
Great. And the next question is, if you could share a little bit more about what we see as some examples of members who are actively involved in the project. You mentioned about, not just writing a check. So is it maybe involved in fundraising for the project, or do they have to be involved with the actual project itself? So maybe a little more on that.
That's a juicy one. And it's not something that I'll say RI says, here's what we're looking for. It's something that the district, and we are essentially a new district. So I'm going to say that it's a little bit in play. We're kind of bobbing and weaving and learning. But this is what I would say at this juncture. If the club is doing a fundraiser, it's getting a lot of coverage, a lot of people are excited, and it's to buy one thing for the community, and you're going to cut a ribbon, I'm okay with that, because there's a lot of public image around that. Everybody was involved with the fundraiser. Everybody, let's face it, we've all done fundraisers. Everybody worked their guts up for that fundraiser. And yes, at the end, somebody was there with the scissors, and it was purchased and it's done, that's okay. I think that's an example of a very fine project. Of course, you love to have the projects where we're rolling up our sleeves, we're digging up something, it takes a while. You know, community gardens are just the perfect example of that. People are going back on a weekly basis, they're talking to people walking by, and it's just a gift that keeps on giving. But they don't always have to be that project. So we certainly do give scholarships, we certainly give bursaries. It does only tend to help a smallish number of people. It would be ideal if there's a group of people maybe supporting that student, if there's a group of people mentoring those students to make sure that they're getting all those juicy tidbits that extra decades of life on the planet can provide. So I don't want to keep running on with examples. I hope that's cleared that up. And if not, they would ask a follow-up question. But fundraising is definitely a heavy-duty club activity that counts.
Sounds like you've nailed it. Thank you, Miriam. Go ahead. That's the end of the question for now.
Oh, well, that was tidy.
Yep.
So the application timeline, this always makes me sweat that I'll say the wrong year, but if I just read the blue and the teal circles, I'll do okay. So the application is open now, and you might think, well, I've seen this, we're ready to rock and roll. And you are awfully close to rocking and rolling with a district grant. So again, you put in your summary, and it's also open to accept I'll say the final grant application, not the final report, but the final application, because you remember there was the quick one pager and then there was a bigger one. The deadline for the final grant application is May the 15th, and I have a feeling your district grant committee will be meeting May the 16th. So there's no fooling around with that deadline, because that's what we did this year. We'll review the applications and we key them in to the Rotary Foundation on July the 1st. We had some training last night that I didn't get my head fully wrapped around, but I might be able to do that a little bit quicker than I thought. We were a new district this year, and I actually couldn't key them in until I think it was September. I couldn't key them in. So that date is, I'll say, the best case scenario is that July 1st I can key them in. And then mid-September, we'll let you know that the grants are approved. And I did get the approval, but there was a little hiccup getting the money sent. That just got sorted. So that's, I'm going to say, the ideal timeline, and that's what we're going to be able to achieve this year for sure. Then that's the application, and now it's the reporting timeline. So this time next year, you're going to do an interim report. So February 2024, you're going to do an interim report and reassure us that your grant is on target to be completed in May. So the final report, Last Chance for Romance, is May 31st, 2024. And that's where we're having this little back and forth with the new grants are coming in. So it does get a bit juicy. And then June, well, you can celebrate because you've done it. Your grant is done. It's a great way for your president to coast into the last month or so of his or her presidency. And don't forget that with public image, you want to showcase your project with the media, social media, mainstream media, TikTok. Not that I would ever do a TikTok video, but lots of millions of people do. And of course, Rotary Showcase. You can upload photos and a short description of the grant on My Rotary and the Rotary Showcase. And Rotary International loves it when we do that because it shows we're people of action. Any questions pop up about the timeline?
Yep, I've got two more questions, not specifically for the timeline.
Oh, okay.
But we'll, the question is around, again, about member participation in the project. And if it is that there's a fundraiser that supports all club projects, a big gala auction or something like that, that helps all projects, including the portion of money that will be used to match for the district grant.
Mhm,
Should
mhm.
the details of that big fundraiser be sort of counted in terms of the Rotary participation?
I think it wouldn't hurt. I don't think we need to have every receipt or every
Yeah.
last penny that was raised, but sure, that's a lovely example of your people of action in the community. So sure, a nice summary of that would be ideal.
Right.
Jillian, Robbie, do you have any other additions to that thought?
Yeah, it's being noted that this is a weekly fundraiser, so it's something that happens. So not like a big, not an event like I suggested as an example, but a weekly fundraiser that's actively involved with Rotarians throughout the course of each and every week. So it wouldn't hurt to just simply state that 100% of club members are involved with the fundraising side of this project. That would be a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
Right.
Love it. Yeah, great point.
Here's a number question for you. On average, if a train is driving at 62 miles an hour, no, just kidding.
Oh,
on
the
average,
sweat's pooling on me back now, girl. All right, what?
How
What
many
direction?
grants?
North?
Yes. On average, how many grants are applied? How many applications do we receive each year? And of those applications, how many get approved? What might be an
I
average?
love it. So remember, we're talking about an average of one. So I don't even have to
Exactly.
divide it, because this is our second round as District 7815. So we had, I think, 24 grants. I might be off by one or two, but I'm darn close. We had 20. I'm not going to flash the screen up because nobody wants to have their business out. Well, I think I'm going to say we had 24 grants. I'm going to say 25 grants. One did not complete the full project, the full initial grant application, so we didn't review it. And then we had 2 projects, 2 clubs put in for 2 projects of the full amount. And we asked them to prioritize which one was the most important to them, and we were only in a position to fund one. So I believe we got 21 grants funded, but there were 2 projects, 2 clubs that sent projects that were smaller amounts, and we were happy to fund the 2 of them. So that was hard to follow, but we'll say in the 20s. And there's not too many that we turned down. There's some we love more than others. Don't get me wrong. Like there's these really juicy ones that you just go, holy cow, I'm going to get my club to give them a call. But it's very hard for us to think about turning down projects that, a group of like-minded people want to participate in, and we'll fund half of it for. So if you tick the boxes, it's a pretty good chance you'll get it.
Wonderful.
And certainly it's an important thing to note. And I think this is often missed, that people go, oh, we've got grants money. And I point to my little chest here with this little blue thing. And I like to feel the Rotary Foundation gave me this lovely commemorative paperweight, as well as this pin, because I managed over the 10-year tenure of my Rotary. I made it a goal to become a major donor. So I like to feel that of all the district grants that that our committee approves for District 7815, I got about a nickel in each and every one of them. And that's where the money comes from. It comes from our donations to the Rotary Foundation. And it doesn't come from Rotary. It doesn't come from the ether. It comes from Rotarians and lovers of Rotarians who love what Rotary does, but may not wish to join the organization, or actually physically love a Rotarian, who knows, that make a donation to the Rotary Foundation. And that's where the money comes from. And once that became clear to me that you didn't just have to be a nice person to get a Paul Harris Fellow grant, I said, I can save some nickels and dimes, and I'm in on every single one of the grant requests that you're going to put in next year. So I feel real good about that.
Thank you, Miriam.
So the next steps, like what is going on here? What's with the club qualification? So we're going to send out a memorandum of understanding, and we want the club presidents, and really it's preferably the presidents-elect, And of course, we're supposed to have that all keyed in for December. I don't know if every club has it all keyed in December, but the president-elect is really going to be the steward of that district grant. So we do like to have the president-elect, the secretary, another good person would be the treasurer, somebody in the club executive to sign that memorandum of understanding. And it's basically that they understand that, you know, they have to match it. It has to be done, paid within a certain year, and they know how the district grant works, the rules of the game, sort of thing. So that's a Google document, thanks to Jillian bringing us that a paper, and it's really easy to sign, and we have it on file, and we can write a spreadsheet, and it's just fabulous. So it's not a hard thing to do, that memorandum of understanding. And because you're attending the training or watching this video of the training, that's another step that you need to take to get club qualification. So you'll want to review the documentation, especially for Club Runner. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Definitely recommend, and we can print the reports, that you take a look at Rotary.org, and there's a lovely couple of courses in there on the foundation and how the foundation works, and district grants and global grants, and would recommend you take a look at that advanced learning. We'd love you to take a look at it. I'm not going to say it's a requirement, but we'll think about it, and it might be 1 year. So you might as well just take a look. It's 20 minutes. It's very interactive. It's quite a good course. We want you to share this information with the club. What's the Rotary Foundation all about? What does it support? How do these district grants get funded? What's the dealio with global grants? Can we do one? If Grand Manan can raise 19 grand and wind up with $267,000, the answer to that, I'm going to say, is yes. Every Rotary club could do a global grant too. So get your club whipped up a little bit about what's possible. And remember, you can always do more when you link arms with that amazing, really #1 foundation on the planet, the Rotary Foundation. You can go fly so much higher and further when you partner with the Rotary Foundation. And please remember to donate to the Rotary Foundation as well. $25 US every year. I think many people could afford that. It's just a couple of lattes away from Starbucks from becoming a member of the Every Rotarian Every Year Club. So that's the end of the formal presentation. We're cutting her close to the end of our time. So we certainly will go over if folks have a couple of extra questions, or Jillian, if any have popped up in the chat. Let's do it.
All right. I don't know if you want to stop sharing so we can have a look at all of our wonderful faces in Hollywood Squares.
Excellent.
There was only one other additional question, but I was able to quickly answer it. It was asking about where the MOU was. So I quickly answered that one in the chat, saying that we will email that to all attendees. And just while I give everybody a few more moments to jot any other questions, it's not too late. You can still get your fingers tapping. I do want to pause and say a sincere vote of thanks to Robbie Griffin for his role tonight in presenting and giving that real tangible, heartwarming example of a global grant. And a special thanks to Miriam for guiding us through the process for the district grant applications and getting us excited. I don't know that I've heard the word juicy used in a way that got me more excited than Miriam used it. This is a juicy one, she said a couple of times. I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is kind of juicy. I like it. I might start using that word, Miriam. So thank you very much for your role this evening in presenting this. And your role doesn't end here. Really, this is just the start of a journey towards district grants and working with the Rotary Foundation. We are a team that's here to support you, to answer your questions. We're always available and have a very good, quick turnaround time. And you know, if there's no question that is silly, and we've probably heard them all. So feel free to reach out to your district team. And let's see what kind of Rotary magic we can make. And I can't wait this time next year to see the list of another 25 projects that have been going forward in our district. through the use of these grants.
It's always so inspiring. I know I get a little wound up and I'm talking 16 to the dozen, but it's always the energy, even through Zoom, we can feel it of the desire to make a difference in the world. It's the common values that we all share and what makes us all Rotarians. And there's nothing better than a great service project with a bit of extra boost from the district grant. It's been awfully hard to fundraise the last few years. And it's such a great opportunity to just push our club money a little bit further with the DDF funds, the district designated funds that come to us for district grants.
I would just
So,
like,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'd just like to add that I've done a number of foundation presentations to clubs over Zoom this year, and I'd be happy to do that for anyone on here this evening. If you would like a presentation, about a 20-minute presentation on the foundation and how it benefits us in our communities and around the world. So if you would like that, just let me know.
Awesome. And November was Foundation Month. Drat, we'll have to make May Foundation Month so we get another crack at it.
Every month is Foundation Month.
Every month, that's right.
Yeah.
So again, our next steps are the MOU. It's all going to come into an email to you. The 2 attendees or viewers of the Zoom recording, the club runner steps, uploading the documentation. We're going to share everything with you. It'll be on the district site, and we will follow up with an email. Feel free to follow up with an email to Robbie, to Jillian, or myself, because we do love questions, and I do get stumped every once in a while, but there's enough big brains that we always get the answer.
Wonderful. Well, there's no further questions, Miriam, so I think it's a wrap.
I think it's a wrap. So
Thank
I'll
you
stop
all for
recording.
participating tonight. It was a great session.